Welcome to Aim in Practice, where we delve into the heart of wellness and the journeys that shape us as practitioners. I'm your host, Jess Reynolds, and I love yoga. Really, I've been practicing some form of yoga on a semi-regular basis for like 20 years almost. And there's a lot of things I really love about all the things to do with yoga, but quite frankly, there's quite a few other things that I think need some improvement. So today we have the privilege of exploring the transformative power of yoga and its deeper spiritual dimensions with my guest, Radasi. Now, Radasi truly is a revered yoga practitioner and instructor. She is so amazing at what she does, and she brings a wealth of experience in traditional Tantra yoga, blending profound spiritual insights with some genuinely practical wisdom. So in this episode, Radasi is going to share her unique journey from her early spiritual awakening to embracing the comprehensive practice of what we call yoga today, while maintaining connection to its lineage. We're going to dive into how yoga transcends physicality, opening doors to meditation and concentration, and ultimately connection with the divine. Radasi's story truly is a testament to the transformative power of yoga and spirituality, offering valuable lessons for both new and seasoned practitioners. So now, as we unravel the layers of yoga beyond the physical aspects, I invite you to join us in this really enlightening conversation. We're going to discover how yoga can be a path not just for physical wellness, but for deep spiritual growth and self-discovery. So enjoy this conversation with my good dear friend, Radasi. So before we jump into today's episode, I'd like to introduce our sponsor, Jane, a clinic management software and EMR with a human touch. Whether you're switching your software or going paperless for the first time, the Jane team knows that the onboarding process, it can feel a little bit overwhelming. That's why with Jane, you don't just get a software, you really do get a whole team. Included in every Jane subscription is their award-winning customer support. Now, a lot of places will say award-winning customer support, but they really are amazing. And they're available by phone, email, and chat whenever you need, even Saturdays. You can also book a free account setup consultation to review your account and ensure you feel super confident about going live. And if you'd like some extra advice along the way, you can tap into the lovely community of practitioners, clinic owners, and front desk staff through Jane's community Facebook group. It's a solid group. So if you're interested in making the switch to Jane, head to jane.app/switch to book a one-on-one demo with a member of their support team. And if you choose to make the switch, don't forget to mention my code, which is AIM1MO. That's AIM, the number 1, MO, at the time of sign up for a 1-month grace period on your new Jane account. Well, Radasi, thank you very much. I'm so happy we finally got around to doing this. I think the first time we talked about having a conversation on the podcast was honestly almost a full year ago. But between our schedules and everything, it's finally happening. So thank you so much for taking the time and chatting with me this morning, my time, this evening, your time, you in Greece. So welcome again. Thank you. And let's start the same way I always do, which is tell me about your journey. I mean, I know you, but I don't actually know what led you to where you are as the practitioner you are. So dive in. Take as long or as little as you want.
Hey, okay, thank you, Jess. Yeah, I really appreciate the opportunity that we can speak and that we've just waited for the right moment. So, yeah. I feel that, at least for my journey, the seed was already when I was a little girl. I wasn't brought up, surprisingly, in a religious or spiritual environment, but I was introduced to a little cross of Jesus, and a woman told me about Jesus when I was 5 years old. She was a neighbor, and then after that I just started praying, and I had this connection. I used to go to sleep with the cross on my chest because she told me that it would help if I was scared in the dark and all of these things, and it truly did. It was such an anchor for me as a child, and I'm so grateful to that woman. And yeah, that's where I feel it all began, actually, through a Christian path. I wouldn't even say Christian. It was just simply that connection to Jesus in a very simple way. And as a result, I also used to go to church on my own when I was 8, 9, 10. And yeah, and then as things unfolded, I had my teenage years. And then eventually I found yoga when I was 19. And I was actually looking for something to relax me because I'd started a psychotherapy training, and I knew that it would be intensive in many ways, especially on a personal level, because they emphasized the personal work that would be needed in this training. And I was, again, so grateful for that training in my life. It was a training dedicated to the client-centered approach with Carl Rogers, and it was 3 years of only that approach, which I think is very hard to find nowadays. And when I look back on the grace that brought me to that training, it was such a spiritual approach to psychology or psychotherapy that I felt really, I still feel very blessed to have received those teachings. And so the yoga and this training coincided with each other. And I must say, I was still very young and wild, and doing what I was doing at the time in terms of expressing myself, dancing, partying. Yet I still kept myself working on myself on that psychological and feeling level. And then, of course, with the yoga. And I just noticed over the years, as I maintained that, that wild side, that party side, just fell away naturally. I gradually became a vegetarian. I didn't just suddenly become a vegetarian. I naturally eased in. I cut out red meat, then I cut out white meat a year later. A year later, I cut out fish, and then slowly some dairy products, which I come back to here and there. So as I look at it now, it was really just a gradual process. And I feel that was the best for me and my typology, not to just kind of just imagine something that would happen very quickly. And I feel that the consistency of that, because I didn't stop, I went into deeper studies of Tantra yoga, and eventually come into traditional Tantra, which also involves traditional yoga. And of course, met various teachers along the way, took various initiations, and I find myself now at 46 and feel very integrated with everything that I've experienced. I still go to church when I can on Sunday mornings. And I just feel that everything's weaved really beautifully. And yeah, I'm just really just sharing it with you. Thank you for the opportunity, because I'm so grateful for that spiritual thread that has been consistent in my life. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I love hearing, well, all stories, but the ones that do have that thread, there's just something special about that when somebody's like, ever since I was 5, 4, 7, whatever, ever since I was a kid, those stories are so beautiful. And I mean, I didn't know any of that about you, so thank you for sharing it. And I'm curious about a few parts of it, if it's okay if we dig into them, right?
Yeah.
Is that all right? Yeah.
Of course.
So I suppose the first part I'm curious about is you were going to school for psychotherapy, and I mean, I'm familiar with the principles and philosophies of Carl Rogers. So I mean, if the universe has a plan, it makes complete sense that that's the type of education you would be a part of, right? That seems totally fitting. But as you sort of started doing a bit more yoga, it sounds like the original inspiration for going for yoga was kind of more just like something to keep going, something to keep you a little bit chill and relaxed, right? Can you tell me more about that first pull to the world of yoga? And the reason I'm curious about it is because, as far as I know, that's like a huge part of your current world is the yogic world. So can we dig into that first sort of pull into the world of yoga? What was it like? What was the practice like? What was sort of the mentality that brought you there?
It was a weekly class in the college that I was studying. the psychotherapy, and I didn't really feel very connected to my teacher, I must say. I was definitely the youngest in the class. I was also the youngest in the psychotherapy class, and
Mm.
somehow, I don't know, maybe it was my mannerism. Obviously, I take responsibility, but I felt like I didn't feel very accepted in there somehow. Maybe it was my own
Mm.
stuff. But for me, I don't know. I really appreciated, I don't even remember her name, but I really appreciated the depth of her class. Because it's only now, when I've seen what I've seen in the yoga world and the different styles and what is actually sometimes taught under the name of yoga. And I look back and I think, wow, in Wigan, in the north of England, this teacher was departing some really beautiful jewels. It wasn't just about
Mm.
physical practice. She was doing some forms of tratika with us, some methods of concentration, some forms of samyama. And when I look back, I think, wow. And at the time, I felt the benefits. And it happened that I only was in those classes 6 months, but actually I'd stopped going to them because I then decided to go to India. And
Mm.
so India immediately opened for me, I feel, as a result of tapping into the classes. So it is like what you say. I just went to get more peacefulness, more relaxation. And I feel like it
Mhm.
opened a huge door in my life that immediately took me to India. Yeah.
Yeah. I I've got this interesting relationship with yoga. And every time I talk about it, I always have to start with the disclaimer, right? The disclaimer is like I love it, like genuinely, and then I follow with this big but, right?
Yeah.
And I think for me the but is when I was first introduced to yoga, it wasn't what you're talking about. Now, I knew what it was from going through TCM school and talking to people, and they like I had this vague idea, right? But I grew up in the middle of nowhere, northern Alberta, so I truly didn't even know the word yoga until I was probably like early 20s. Nevertheless, my first yoga class. I'm kind of embarrassed to actually tell this story because it's hilarious, embarrassing. I go to this yoga studio in Calgary, a big studio, and there was this yoga class. It was called uh, BOHTI, so Bo T Yoga, and I'm like, that sounds great. I don't know what that is. It sounds wonderful. It was at this hot yoga studio. It was middle of winter. I'm like, wonderful. So I go in there, and I walk into this big studio room, and I make my way to the back corner, and slowly the room starts to fill up more and more and more with exclusively women, with the exception of me. And it turns out it wasn't pronounced Bo T yoga, it was pronounced Booty yoga, in which we spent an entire hour twerking. And I'm like, is this yoga? And it just blew my mind that that was being sold as yoga, because my limited impression of yoga was something
Mm,
that has this spiritual and physical practice, right? So my first interaction with it was not beautiful. It was not
mm,
enjoyable. And as I talked with more and more people in the
mm,
yoga world, the impression that I kept getting was essentially this is an exercise class. But then there was these few people who I would talk to who had a regular yoga practice, and they didn't talk about the physical practice. They would talk about the yoga practice of meditation and the yoga practice of mantras and the yoga practice of going to India and sitting, and they really said almost nothing about the physical aspect. And it suddenly created this
mm,
dissonance in my mind of what I, as this Westerner, perceived yoga, an exercise class, to what it actually is, right? So I mean, that was a really long story, and I'm sorry for
no,
bogarting the
it,
conversation here, but
yeah.
I think my experience isn't that unusual in the West, and the fact that
Mm,
you had an opposite exposure is really amazing.
mm,
So with my experience, which well unusual in insofar as my very first exposure to a yoga class was absolutely outrageous. The understanding of yoga being sort of a fitness class, like an aerobics class, I think that's quite common. And to me, there really does seem to be a dissonance. And the more I learn and understand about the history of yoga and what yoga really is, and quite frankly, the profound overlap between the principles of yoga and Taoism, the more I feel like what happened? What happened in this dissonance between
mm,
yoga as it has been practiced for as long as it has been, the yoga classes that we see so often in the West?
What comes to my awareness when you say this answers two questions here, actually. So I'm going to put them together like this. What happened that yoga has been, in so many cases, reduced, let's say reduced to a mere physical practice by many different schools or institutions or teachers. And we can also, because I'm sure we're going to speak about this, say, why has the tantra been reduced to something that is of primarily a sexual nature? And if we look at both of those, whether we're dealing with the physical practice or we're, in both cases, let's say it like this, we're dealing with a physical practice. So something that can be so highly spiritual and highly subtle and highly divine in its nature, through the human consciousness, so the level of consciousness that we kind of are at in humanity right now, we've taken something of that and reduced it really, or brought it down into a very gross physical experience. And I don't want to offend anybody when I say that. Maybe somebody
That's all
is
right.
like, I love yoga because, of the physical. Actually, some people need that physical because they need to heal the body, so I really don't say that there's anything wrong with it. But if we stop only there, then we lose the true essence of yoga. And it's the same with Tantra. If we just stop and look at Tantra as a sexual practice, we lose the 95% of what else is there in Tantra. So I feel like it explains in both cases. It's the level of consciousness that we're at that we miss the essence, actually.
That makes sense. And I think that's why I always start my yoga conversations with disclaimers, because like, again, I love it. Now there's so much value in the physical practice. I mean, some of the moments of, I'm reluctant to say enlightenment, but like touching that higher levels of consciousness that I can access through the physical practice, right? Like, yes, it's so important, but my curiosity really lies in why that is such a big focus. And I suppose in part, what are the other legs to this stool that we could call yoga? And these are a whole bunch of questions I'm throwing at you, so we'll go through them one by one. And what is your practice in your school and what you teach? How does that differ insofar? So let's back up to the first question. Is we got the physical practice, important, no question. But what's missing? What's missing so often from what most of us view yoga as in your experience?
It's really beautiful to call in at this point to answer this question. One of the most widely spoke about actually teachings within the Yoga Sutras, the sutras that relate to the 8 limbs of yoga. And to explain it, it's so simple. There are 8 limbs of yoga. Actually, in the Hatha Yoga system, there are only 6 limbs of yoga. So maybe I actually go to the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, because this, I would say, would be more in touch with the Hatha Yoga system. In the 6 limbs of yoga, we start with asana, and it is after it's said that after we have established let's just say established, I don't want to say master ourselves in asana, but once we've established ourselves in asana, then we can move on to the next limb, which would be pranayama. And that means that we stop working just with the physical body, and we can then move to the more subtle practices of moving energy around the body. So we call, and expanding that energy, we call that pranayama. And then the next stage after that is cultivating what we call pratyahara, where we start to learn how to literally just be with ourselves. Some people say that it's closing down the senses, but I don't refer to it like that. I don't experience it like that. It's pratyahara is more where we are less distracted by the senses. So the senses can be full power, but we're simply able to keep the energy, the Shakti within ourselves. And then this stage, this third stage, helps us then to cultivate the ability to go to concentrate. Concentration is a massive limb that we underestimate. The ability to focus the mind is so unattainable for most people. Of course, we can say, yeah, I focused on that movie for 2 hours, but we're talking about a focus of the mind that is on one pointed single awareness. So this would then be the limb of concentration. And then the next one is meditation. So as you see, if we move through these limbs, and then the last one would be moving into states of samadhi, this dissolution. So if we look at these limbs, they get more and more subtle as we go along in their experience, and less attainable for some people. So it's so much easier to enter into the asana. Now, I just need to mention, because some people might be saying, yes, but what about the 8 limbs of yoga, the first 2, which are actually the morals and the ethics and the disciplines, which are the yamas and niyamas. So, but in the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, they say, look, let's just start at asana, because at least then we'll start purifying at a level that helps to bring us naturally to the embodiment of the yamas and niyamas. So this is, for me, a great way to answer your question, and can help people to see how to develop their practice. Because I think when we go step by step, we actually create a great foundation for ourselves in terms of keeping the body healthy and happy and stable. Because how to meditate most of the time, if we're in difficulties with the bodies or the energy is out of balance, it's difficult. And if we've not learned to cultivate concentration, meditation doesn't happen. So
yeah, I really appreciate that pathway, and I suppose I'm positive there are a great many yoga teachers and practitioners out there who do talk about all the limbs. I mean, I've heard it in a few classes I've been to, but some part of me just wishes that almost as if a yoga class was like, okay, we're gonna work on the asana limb, we're gonna do that, but just so you know, this is just step 1. Like I sometimes I wish there was just more of that out there, more discussion of this thing that is, and I suppose part of the reason I'm so passionate about that is the progression that you just described. It's so beautiful, and it's something that I personally believe is lacking, this being in touch with what one does contact through hours of concentration and meditation and focus. And so many people go to yoga classes, and it's like this is like an entry point into the world of the spiritual, and an entry point into the world of higher consciousness and experience. Nevertheless, my rant over. I would
yes.
like to, if it's all right with you, dig into a little bit about one thing you mentioned in regards to a big part of your practice and the system that you follow is traditional Tantra yoga. And one thing you mentioned was, you said Tantra and then traditional Tantra, and you spoke of them as if they were 2 different things. Is that the case, or is there like Tantra and then traditional Tantra, or are the same thing? And if so, what's the difference?
I mean, I guess it's just my own way of using the terminology. I can't say this is the definite way of the terminology, but we do find that there is a Tantra that we call Neo-Tantra nowadays, which is more of that new progressive type of Tantra that has really got the attention, has really put Tantra on the map, actually. I think without the Neo-Tantra, not so many people would be interested in the traditional. And the Neo-Tantra is the way that I was first introduced into Tantra. In fact, I was introduced to Tantra also in a very deep way that included Tantra yoga, because I see Tantra yoga and Tantra as also, they are the same thing, but they are also different. And I can go on to explain that in a moment. When we say that they are actually the same paths. They are actually the same path. So as Neo-Tantra is a pretty new path, I don't want to say that it doesn't have any roots in the traditional Tantra. It does. But what we find nowadays is that we don't even see those roots because there's such an emphasis, and what I've started to do, I used to call any teachings that I gave on sexuality or relationships, I used to call it Tantra. And now I simply call it sacred sexuality or sacred relationships, just to not confuse. And it's funny because when Yogas and myself were married by our guru at the ashram in India, I was thinking, oh, he's going to give all of these traditional teachings for relationships and sexuality. And he actually just said, and please don't ask me for anything of like that. And I was like, oh my God, you've even married us and we can't, and you're a tantric master and we're not
Mhm.
receiving those teachings. And the thing is, he actually said most people would run away if they got the real traditional sexual tantric teachings, because they're hardcore. They're not easy.
Hmm.
They're not like this beautiful sitting, staring with the eyes open and exchanging energy in this type of way. That they're very, very different. Traditional Tantra, and let's just go to what you're asking here so we can define that path. It is a path of different levels, and it has some very digestible practices and some very hardcore practices. I know that being around my guru for nearly 12 years now has not been an easy path. I will say that
Hmm.
it can have some real challenging moments, like some of the traditional tantric kriyas that we practice, which are a form of they're not yoga, but some of them look like yoga. They are very difficult, and we have to practice some of these for like 20 minutes, 30 minutes on like one posture and
Mhm.
things like this, or one particular action, because they're kriyas. And what traditional Tantra endeavors to do is connect us and open us to energy in a very radical way. Okay, there are some of the practices that open you gently, maybe some of the devotional practices, but generally, the mantras that we use, the kriyas that we use, the fire ceremonies, um, can all be pretty powerful and pretty austere as well. So ultimately, Tantra is connecting us, or should I better say, awakening our divine energy that already exists within us. It's not something that we are chanting a mantra so this energy can come from outside of ourselves. In many ways, we're not really worshipping anything that's outside of ourselves. Everything is inside. But as a human being at the level of consciousness that we're all at the moment, none of this energy is very much awakened. We don't
Mhm.
realize this divinity that exists within ourselves. So we're at a time as humanity that I feel traditional Tantra is really an excellent path, because uh, it has tools that I feel help to really unlock energy. Whereas
Mhm.
to do simple sitting meditations or, uh, these kind of more gentle practices, it, it doesn't really unlock our energy, unless,
Yeah.
of course, we have the grace of the divine, and then everything is possible. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. No, I appreciate the explanation. And what came up for me as you were describing that is when I was first introduced to the idea of tantra yoga, I had vague ideas of tantra from pop culture, mostly just tantric sex. Right, that was like the extent of my exposure even to that word. But being completely ignorant to it, my first introduction as tantra yoga piqued my curiosity. Like, okay, I've never heard those two words combined. I didn't even know that that was a thing. Um, which was fascinating because uh, once I sort of explored it with this idea that there's the pop culture reference to tantric sex, and then there's the tantra yoga world. the more I learned about actual Tantra yoga, largely through when I was editing all of the courses for you a couple of years ago. Like, I mean, I sat through hours and hours and hours of Tantra philosophy. And as I was going through it, that in conversations I've had with Brianne and others, I'm like, this is so interesting because not once did you maybe I don't think once, maybe once, but not from my memory, was there even a hint of a mention to tantric sex. And it's like, this is when somebody says tantra, most people's mind goes to this world of tantric sex. But when you actually get into the study of tantra, as you mentioned, it's like there's like that's just not really an emphatic part of the system. It is a part of it. I'm so curious that that's the part that was plucked out from the world of tantra into the West, and then the reality is that practice. Like when I was going through those lessons and editing them, I could not help but compare to the principle that I've dedicated my life to, Taoism. They're like the exact same thing, just with a totally different language. And as you said, it's this spiritual journey that one can embark on to really start to access divinity. And I really appreciate that that's sort of the description you gave is divinity. So when people first come to you, being a mentor, and I'm not sure if you classify yourself as a guru or whatever title you put on yourself as a teacher who offers programs, what type of students approach you when they're looking at the courses and the classes and the workshops that you offer?
A wide range, right?
Okay.
Wide range of ages come, and of course, I offer some women's only courses in India and Greece. So, of course, that directs it specifically for women. But of course, we have a lot of mixed gender. So, because we teach together, yogas and myself. So there's just all walks of life of people
Mm.
actually, and there's a beauty and different experience levels as well. It's yeah. So um, yeah, it's interesting to see who
Mhm.
comes, and people are looking for different things. Some people come on teacher trainings and they're looking to be a teacher, but the majority of people are looking to come to deepen their practice. Simply that they want to deepen their practice, and then when they come, they realize, wow, well, I do actually develop skills for me to share something. And depending on people's experience level, of course, they're going to share at different levels of their capability. We also get a lot of people coming for mantra because over the years of initiation, I've been, and also yogas, he's going to pass his great graduation, we could call it, this year. So, in that effect, we're both authorized from our lineage, using the connection of the lineage to give mantras. So, more and more, we get people simply writing to us wanting a daily practice. And
Mm.
it's really beautiful. We can give people a mantra that suits what they need, like what's going on for them, even in context of astrology and things like that, and basically guide people through a process that they can stabilize the energy, stabilize any obstacles that are there for them, and many other things. Get them familiar with the chakras, and there's mantras for many different purposes. So that's quite a big part of what we do actually. Even in our yoga trainings, we give mantra people to have the experience of mantra sadhana, because everything we do orientates around traditional tantra. So
Mhm.
people think they're getting a yoga training, and they do. They get an authentic experience of a sadhana while they're in the house.
Mhm. So if it's possible, can we play that out? Like, let's just say, I don't know you. We're meeting each other for the first time, and I contact you as me, just somebody who's got a vague understanding of tantra, with a vague understanding of the chakra system and Ayurvedic medicine, and that's kind of where I'm at. And I would say, like, help. I heard about you. Help. Like, how do you work with somebody who just contacts you and is just looking for guidance, be it a mantra or otherwise? What does that look like?
Mm. Wow. If somebody's reaching out and saying that, we have a community. It's very simple how we do things in Satyaloka. We're not such tech geniuses and things like that, but we get by in a really cool way, actually. Like, we've got a WhatsApp group, and most people
Hmm.
that funnel in through emails or the social media, wanting to connect or see if what we offer can help them. I show, obviously they can see what we offer online in terms of, at the in person, in terms of retreats and teacher trainings and these things. But sometimes just bringing people into our WhatsApp group, we have a group on WhatsApp, and they can be part of this group. And from time to time, I'm just giving free classes in there. It also supports the people that have done the teacher trainings with us so that they stay connected to the teachings, and hopefully I can continue to give inspiration through these classes. And then there is the opportunity. We give mantra sadhana a few times a year and we funnel it into this group because our lineage celebrates certain in Hindu festivals. And we also give mantra, like at the moment now for the war that's taking place, we give people the option if they want to do mantra to help the civilians that are involved in that. So, they can be a part of a community and they can choose when and how they want to do these sadhanas. And then if somebody wants a personal practice, that's when I would say to them, okay, I can give you a mantra. We can start you off on 30 minutes a day, maybe 1 hour if they're already experienced with meditation, and then they can go into something of a more daily practice. So it's really feeling what people need. Of course, we also I offer to give like mentorship and these types of things, which does take place, but I find generally just the nature of how we do things in Satyaloka, we're available for people in an organic way without necessarily booking appointments and all of these things. For us, people that come are like friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I had the opportunity to really get an inside glimpse as to what the process was like. Bran and I, of course, came to visit you and Yorgos in Greece a year ago, pretty much exactly a year ago. And I've been involved in quite a few different yoga teacher trainings to some capacity or another at this point in time. And what I've always found is pretty much universally, yoga teacher trainings have a very intimate, close-knit, community type feel, more than any other type of class I've taught. There's just this vibe when yogis come together or yoga practitioners come together and want to learn. But I found in particular that when I was in part teaching in Greece, there's something a little different about the group that you had gotten together and the other groups I've worked with you via Zoom. I've noticed the same thing. Some greater degree of tightness, of closeness, of feeling like a unit. And is that something that you like have consciously tried to foster, or is it just like a naturally organic thing that develops because of the unique way that your trainings are held, which I would love to dig into a little bit more? What are your thoughts on that? Because there really is something special about the groups that you've worked with.
Yeah. Naturally, when a group is together for a longer period of time, they knit together. It's like people are sharing rooms, well, in some cases, and our human nature is to bond and to move closer together when we're in our harmony. And so I feel that that's quite natural. At the same time, the way that these trainings are orchestrated, at least the majority of them, for example, if people come to the ashram, to our lineage ashram, Shivoham Tantra in India, it would be a bit of a different experience because we teach those advanced levels of yoga in a different way. They're more of an initiation, and somehow I don't include the kind of personal development opportunities that are included in the other TTCs. And what does that look like? We do a lot of like sharing, not a lot, but once a week we do a sharing circle. We constantly are checking in about people's health and well-being. In the beginning of like a TTC, we'll have like every morning after breakfast, we'll see how people are doing, how they're integrating. And I feel that that gives the permission for people to be true to what's happening for them, what's going on in their bodies, even the digestive system. How are you today? Is everybody like okay in the health and feeling level, and what's working, what's not? So at least when I'm running these courses, I'm very much in this mood. And then different parts of the teaching that we share, including the dances, including the prayer circles, all of these things, the creative sessions, are just helping people to get more real with themselves, actually. And then I feel that that's when truly a group can start to bond, because if we're not real with one another, it's going to be a very superficial connection. But when our stuff starts to come up for purification, or we find that we can speak something that's been in our heart for a very long time and it's not really had the capacity to be heard, then this is what I see as such a beauty on these retreats and trainings. And I have to say, it's not easy sometimes, Jess, holding space for this stuff, because a lot of projection can come sometimes as a facilitator, or, sometimes people are really in it. Not always, but sometimes people can really dive into something that they didn't feel safe to do before. And it's like, it's holding that and allowing that, whilst keeping the framework of the teacher training, because ultimately people come and they want to leave as an embodied yoga teacher. So I'm kind of, I feel like we're holding two mega things there, but I love it.
Huge.
And I've seen in all of these years, it's been what now, 16 years teaching teacher trainings, and I see the transformation and the retreats as well, of course. It doesn't always have to be a TTC.
Yeah. One thing that you mentioned in there, which I really appreciate, is this idea of real. And that's something I deeply appreciate about you is you're real. I've always, since the very first moment I met you, Brianne told me about you, of course, and I'm like, okay, we've got this person named Radasi, and I had this mental image, but your way of communicating and your authenticity, like, it has never once come across like you're putting on the yogi persona, right? That we see. I'm so grateful for that. And yet simultaneously, like, you've got this like genuine, you're just exactly who you are. And also you maintain this deep, profound, consistent practice. And now they're not exclusive things, but that's something I admire about you, how you simultaneously just have a conversation over a cup of tea, and we can curse and laugh and just have a good chat and maintain this practice. Not mutually exclusive. But I'm curious about that practice part. Is what's kept you in it to the degree that you are, which in my experience is in it, and also simultaneously, what do you do to maintain you-ness, the fact that you are still just you? I don't know if I'm making sense in this question, but so often I see people who have dedicated their life to a practice, and they get this like this air of, I'm a yogi and I'm going to talk soft all the time, and I'm going to behave in this very certain way, right? Like, I see that so often, and I've never seen that in you. It's this beautiful combination. So again, the question is, what's kept you in it as long as you have been, and deep within the practice, and also allowed you to maintain your authenticity?
So I'll just say about the authenticity, Jess, I do definitely have moments where I get proud, and can be a little bit, the arrogance can rise in me. And that's why, to be honest, I love having a guru, because he knows how to, in very direct ways, just, I feel like he's a great he allows me to keep conscious of not, because it's very natural for pride to kick in. It's not even that as yoga teachers we can start to talk more quietly, although that was quite funny. But the proudliness, I'm a teacher, or I can do this or that, or I have my spiritual practice. It creates a massive ego, and this is a huge danger. And it scares me actually that, for all of us, that we have that if we don't keep a tab on it. And I'm so grateful because I had one teacher, one guru from 2012 up until 2017 who encouraged us to always check in on ourselves, to look at ourselves, and to watch the the egoic tendencies. And that takes us back to those early years in psychotherapy with Carl Rogers' work. We were trained to see the self-concept, which is the ego, and the organismic self, which is our true innate being. So that's why I'm so grateful that I was introduced to all that personal development work, because it got me from a very young age watching the personality and how a falsity can rise from that. So I don't know if that is what has helped to cultivate more authenticity, but I also live by the thing that it needs constant self-awareness, and I really try with that. But I also feel it's really hard for me not to be real. It puts pressure on me if I'm trying to be something that I'm not. It's too much pressure. Like, I don't have my shit together sometimes, and I prefer that I'm very honest about it. And then nobody has expectations. And usually on the trainings or the retreats or whatever it may be, I'm not scared to show my vulnerabilities as well. I like to, this is my vulnerabilities. I'm feeling sad with this, or this is making me angry, and showing that realness. And then I don't lose energy trying to be something that I'm not. So I think that it's just an easier life by being trying to be consistently true to myself. So that was that part. And then the other part, you were asking about the consistency. What keeps that consistency of the practice? I feel really lucky that I have faith. I have a consistent faith in the divine, in something more than what we often perceive in day-to-day life. And it's pretty unshakable. I'm touching wood because I know that will be a test at some point. But yeah, this has helped to keep consistency. I know I heard once that Mother Teresa, she only had one prayer, and that was to keep faith. And I could really resonate with that prayer. I think if you've got faith, you want to meditate. If you have faith, you want to pray. If you've got faith, you can go and you want to go to church. You want to find anywhere to pray. It doesn't matter where I am. For me, any religion, I feel like I can find the divinity in any religion, and that's why for me there's no separation through religion. That divinity is in all of it. And that's one thing. And then the other thing that I feel is really realistic and needing to be said to this is I didn't have an easy time, like many people, as in my childhood. It was certainly chaotic and dysfunctional, the environment that I was raised in. And I feel that I needed to have faith. I needed an anchor to hold me through that. And that is consistent, I think, when we've really felt life and been through some difficulties in life. I just know that it inspires me more to look for something deeper within inside of myself. If I just rely on Radasi in my everyday life, and that's all that I've got. When I hit the hard times, it's not
Mm-hmm.
enough. It's not
Yeah.
enough. It's not enough just to have my friends. I really I need this like divine anchor, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And some people, they say, oh, but where is the divine when all this is happening now with the wars and all of these things? In a really difficult way to say this, everything is having its cycles and needs to play out. I've no doubt about that. Just like in our own karma, we have to live out some horrible experiences, to fulfill whatever cycles they are in our soul's evolution, and inevitably we grow from them. I think everybody can say that. Not everybody. I know that it's difficult to say that in all cases, but in many cases, people that have grown through hardship are grateful afterwards, because it's made us stronger. It's made us more humble,
Yeah.
actually. Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of things that came up through both of those discussions or conversations, but what's sitting with me most right now is this last part about talking about the power of those challenging situations, and what having some form of faith and some sort of something to lean on when things are really, really hard, that is bigger than me, right? Bigger than the
Mm.
individual. And not too terribly long ago, I read this really great book, it's called Life is in the Transitions. And part of what drew me to it is I've had this saying since I can remember. Like, honestly, I remember being a teenager and saying this: transitions suck. Like, being in the shower, awesome. Being out of the shower, not so bad. Getting out of the shower, horrible. Being in bed, fine. Being out of bed, great. Getting out of bed, horrible. So I had this like idea that, like, in between states of existence, those transitions are they're just shitty. And I read this book called Life is in the Transitions, and it proved a pretty definitive case that life is in fact transitions. There are these little blips of time where things are okay, where things are stable in their goodness or stable in their badness, but the very vast majority of life is these transitions. And again, most people, not everybody, get to the other side of a transition and they're like, that was horrible, but I'm stronger because of it. I've learned this because of it. But again, without that thing to lean on, that faith, that something
Mm.
bigger, those transitions, which turn out again to be the majority of our life, gosh, they're so much harder. They're so much harder when
Mm.
there's not something big to lean on, a faith of some sort. And as you were describing that, I saw your hands almost grip that cross as that little child again, holding the cross in
Mm.
bed, right? And just that
Yeah.
that through line, that consistent thread that you mentioned seems to be a pretty powerful part of your entire
Mm.
life.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. Well, thank you also for sharing that about the transitions. It's so true. And the crazy thing is we spend most of our life trying to maintain the in between the transitions, trying to make them the life. So then we
Mm-hmm.
suffer because that's not the reality.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, those little blips, we're trying so desperately to get out of the low points and stay in the high points,
Hmm.
that the actual, I mean, yes, the saying life is about the journey, not the destiny, we've all heard it, but it is so true. And
Mm.
journeys they are damn difficult more often than not. They're
Hmm.
like, even the transitions, not the transitions, the journey of learning tantra, right? Like, I've heard Brianne's stories, I've heard some of your stories. Like, it's not an easy path. But
Hmm.
on the other side of these brutally challenging at times
Hmm.
sessions of meditations or weeks of meditation,
Hmm.
there's that blip of, oh, right, and this is why I keep doing.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. Beautiful.
So on kind of a, oh, my headphone, there we go. So kind of a transition out of that. What I'm curious is what's sort of next. I mean, I know you've always got something on the go. Hence, it took us a year to actually set up a time to talk with each other. Like, there's always another retreat and something happening. You're going to India, but what's next, and why is a more important question for me. What are you off to next?
Well, I go to India in 4 days,
Okay.
5 days. we go on a pilgrimage, actually. It's like a part of Yogas's with our guru and some of the Sangha. And it's part of his final finale for his time of getting his kind of connection in the lineage. He takes the lineage name at this point. So we'll both be Aryavrat then. And yeah, so this is the big thing now. We'll go on pilgrimage, then he's got his final Guru Puja. And then after that, we teach for a month the advanced initiation, the yoga and Kriya Sharab Yoga. And then, yeah, and then we take some time. You'll be very proud of us. We're going to record some online classes in India.
Oh.
Yeah, just to make life a bit more easy. And then we're going to do a cleanse, a retreat and a cleanse. We're going to, because I feel that we both had a very big year. As you probably, you know, Yogas has been building the sadhana house in Bulgaria, a place where we can do our own retreats. I don't feel like it's going to be the place where we run a lot of our events. It's more of this, going there and everything's just quiet and simple, So he's been fully in that, and obviously what I've been doing. So we're going to take time to just cleanse and rejuvenate. And then next year, it looks like we will be establishing here at Olympus in a much more focused way. But I don't really want to say too much yet because, like the divine has their plans and we kind of just keep guessing.
Yeah, I get you.
But we're kind of getting ready for some really big changes next year, actually. And what I'm hoping is that these changes start to bring our work into a more precise offering, because at the minute we're moving quite a lot in terms of where we offer our work. And I'm ready to, I can feel it, Jess, I'm ready to stop traveling as much as I do.
Wow.
I don't know.
That's big. That's one of those big transitions.
I'm not going to say it will stop a lot, but I'd love to reduce it by 50%. Yeah. So that's it. Yeah. Let's see.
So how do people find you? I'm sure there's quite a few people who have been listening who are like, wow, this sounds amazing. And how can people get in touch with you and perhaps look into a retreat or a TTC or something that you offer?
Oh, well, they can look on the website and see if there's anything on there that speaks to them. And then at the same time, I mean, there's retreats. We've got one in England next year, which is really exciting. And then India and Greece. In fact, we're being hosted in the Czech Republic actually in May as well. So have you heard me? Of course, I'm going to travel. But that's possible. And then, of course, if they want to just kind of come in a very easy online way, we've got this little WhatsApp group community that they can hop into. They just need to email us and they can get a link for that. And if they want daily meditation practice, I'm happy to give a mantra. Even yogas can start to give these mantras as well, if they prefer a man with a beard. So yogas. Great. So he's heading back tomorrow from Bulgaria, so I will see him tomorrow. So
one of my absolute favorite people.
Yeah, he's one of many. Really, he's so loved. So just in very easy, simple way. We like to just do things easy, and we are genuinely available for people. If I give my WhatsApp number as well, if people need to connect, to figure something out with how they need to move forward. We call them discovery calls nowadays, but it just means having a chat.
It's just a phone call. Well, I'll put all that information down in the show notes, so anybody who is interested, they can just check out those notes and get a hold of you.
Kind. Thanks,
Yeah.
Jess. I just want to
You
say,
know,
you've been so
yeah.
supportive to us these years. Honestly, like your trust and your support to what you've done for us, putting everything online during COVID and just consistently, there's so many things we couldn't have done without your help. So thank you,
Well,
really.
it's truly been my pleasure. It's been
Oh.
wonderful getting to know both you and Yorgos over the years, and I'm
Mm.
grateful. So thank you as well.
And also, we need to give you a certificate. I never thought once that you had literally studied most of the online TTC material. So maybe
Yeah,
we need to give you like some certificate.
an honorary certificate of some sort. I've been
100
through a few
hours.
hours of tantra lessons at this point. Some of it 2 or 3 times, to be honest.
Oh, you deserve it.
No, it's good. I enjoyed it. I really did. So thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Awesome. Well, really awesome chatting with you. I'm very grateful for this conversation because I got to learn a lot more about you that I didn't know. So thank you
Oh.
very much for sharing your story and your time. And I
Hmm.
look forward to chatting soon.
Great, love. Okay, thank you so much. Much love to you and to everybody that's been listening. Thank you for your time.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Namaste.